All right. Good morning,
Good
good
afternoon
evening, good afternoon,
and
and
welcome.
welcome. Welcome to the weekly webinar with Claire and Hanny. Um, for those of you joining us for the first time, my name is Claire Kelly. I'm the International Immigration Advisor, and I am broadcasting from sunny and snowy Moncton, New Brunswick. Hanny, where you
And
come from?
my name is Hini Kamal. I'm International Affairs Coordinator and I'm from corporate office and I'm located in Fredericton.
That's right. Looks pretty sunny there too, eh?
It is,
Is
it
it?
is very sunny.
Did you get any snow last night?
Actually, we did.
Yeah.
We had a few centimeters of snow, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, same here. Um, I'll say up front to everyone watching and listening now and who watches this later, I just got back late last night from British Columbia, which is about 6,000 kilometers away from New Brunswick, and it's 4 time zones away. So it is currently 10 a.m. in New Brunswick, but my brain makes it feel like 6 a.m. So I'm a little, I don't know, a little sleepy, a little off my game. If that's why, if I speak a bit slower or or get lost in my thoughts, that's why. So Annie's gonna help me out.
Yep. I'll
Um,
try.
but yeah, thank you, Annie. But we did want to go as we promised at the end of our webinar last week. We oops. Uh-oh. Sorry. Uh-oh. Can you hear that, Henny?
Nope,
There we go.
I cannot.
Sorry. It's off to a good start. I could hear a ringing in my ear because I pushed something. So as we said at the end of last week's webinar, we had a lot of questions from you, and so we wanted to get to those first thing. So we'll be answering the questions that we took screenshots of, or we took literal photos of last week. We'll go through those first, and then we'll get to your questions live this week. And that's going to be the entire 1 hour webinar, is just answering your questions, because that's the most important thing, why we're meeting every week. So we're going to get to it. Uh, the last question that we answered last week was when we arrive. We'll just kind of refresh with our last question of last week, which is when we arrive there, what kind of orientation shall we be given? Hanny, you want to take that one?
Yep. So usually we will do pre-arrival orientation as we did
Mhm.
with our students who came for the fall 2019, and we did the pre-arrival orientation through our webinars for students who came for winter 2020. So you will receive the pre-arrival webinars, and if you interested about the past pre-arrival webinars, you can find them at nbcc.ca under international students, and there is a resources, and you can click and see. You know what? I will share my screen to show the students where they can find it. Okay. So here is. Can you see the screen?
Yep.
So if you can go at nbcc.ca and you can just go to international page. Uh, so all you need to do, just click resources, and here is the pre-arrival webinar. So we did 8 pre-arrival webinars and we covered
Mhm.
different topics. We invite different guests. So that's in regards to the pre-arrival. As soon as you come
Mhm.
to campus, you will have on-campus orientation session. The
Mhm.
orientation session, because many students wondering if, because they might not be there on time, is it mandatory? No, it's not mandatory, but we will definitely encourage you to attend all the pre-arrival and orientation session um, so it would help you with adaptation. Yep. Hope
It
this
definitely will. It's
answered the
called
question.
yeah, it's called
ITLC?
ITLC. So International Transition to Life at College.
Yep.
And it does happen on every campus. And some of the bigger campuses, like Moncton, um, actually, if you miss the 1 day ITLC, they split it up over 4 or 5 lunchtime sessions in the month of September, so that you can actually catch up on what you missed on that one day. So yeah, there is an orientation. It's a 1-day event, and definitely attend if you are able to, because it will help to get to know other students who are just arriving and get to know some important information. So the next question is, after graduation of a 1-year program, how is the application procedure for the 1-year working permit? So I guess that's for me. Whether you're in a 1-year program, 2-year program, or 3-year program, the application's the same. Essentially, as soon as you have received your final grades from your program, you know that you're eligible to graduate. That's when you're eligible to apply for your post-grad work permit. And I think there maybe is a question later on, but um, maybe some people's understanding is that you have to have a job before you apply for your work permit. That's not the case. All you have to do is be able to graduate, and then you apply for your work permit. You don't have to get the job first. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I'll be leading some sessions on how to apply for that when you actually arrive, but it's fairly straightforward.
Yes.
If you were
So
able to successfully get a study permit, you'll be able to hopefully successfully get a work permit. So
yep.
yeah,
Thanks. So yes, guys, just add to our orientation session, so you will have chance to meet Claire in the person on campus, because she's gonna do her own session. And students asking me about this work permit, and the one the one that you are talking about is called postgraduate work permit, right?
postgraduate work permit.
Yeah,
That's right.
because students ask me what is difference between work permit that allows me to work 20 hours for
Hmm.
co-op and after the graduation. So this one is postgraduate work permit, and there is timeline of 90 days, right? As far as I remember.
180 days actually,
Okay.
but you can't start working until you have that work permit, or sorry, until you've applied for that work permit. So most NBCC students want to keep work or want to continue, let's say, with their part-time job and work full-time. So usually they apply right away. They don't wait that 180 days. But yeah, to your point, Hanny, I know it can be confusing because there are essentially 3 scenarios of working in Canada. There's the working 20 hours per week, which you don't need any work permit for. You just need your study permit. There's the co-op work permit, which is part of your program, but because you are able to work full time, you do need a work permit. And there's going to be a question about that later, so I'll get to it. And then
Okay.
the third is the post-grad work permit, and that's after graduation. And yes, you do need a work permit. So, and I have a presentation of that, which is actually on our website, which gives the summary of work scenarios. So, but those are the 3 basic ones. So the next question is, can we work in any field for 1 year if we cannot find the exact field that we graduated? And yes, definitely. Um, that's also sometimes a misconception, is that students think that they have to find a job that is lined up with what they studied, and at least in New Brunswick, that's not the case. So with the postgrad work permit, which is all across Canada, that's not the case. It's an open work permit. You can work in any field, but where sometimes students get maybe confused or misled is, I think it's maybe Manitoba and Newfoundland that have programs that you do have to get a job in your field with what you studied, but New Brunswick, that's not the case. So you can work anywhere, to answer that question. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So next question. Oh, these are a lot of immigration questions. Sorry, Henny. When we enter Canada on at the border, do we have to tell them something special to the passport control police about our study permit and work permit after graduation? Um, I don't know necessarily what uh, maybe you mean by that, but no, you don't need to tell them anything special. You need to know we will do a whole session on entry to Canada, and we already have that listed in our pre-arrival webinars. When you go to the border, you do of course need to show the Canadian Border Service Agent, CBSA, the um, documents that prove you are going to study at NBCC, at New Brunswick Community College. So you should know which program you're going to be attending. And yes, that you are going to be doing a co-op or an internship. And that's where you should include the work experience letter, which I think we talked about last week, and we'll talk again with another question. But yeah, nothing special. The border agent does know that a lot of international students come here and then they're able to work after. That's totally fine. Um, so how can I get oh, how can I get from Montreal to Moncton? The flight ticket's the cheapest. Is there a website? So I'll leave this to you, Hanny. You seem to travel all around Canada, so
Well, I would
you like to
say,
go to Montreal and Quebec sometimes. But do you
yeah.
drive or do you fly?
Well, it depends. Sometimes I drive, sometimes but I mean, in case of the international students, I assume they don't have a car. So for
Right.
them would be probably the best option would be fly,
You
and
can rent a
because
car.
and
Yeah.
you can rent a car, but I mean, I would not recommend it, especially if you're not familiar with, driving in Canada. So for the flight, you can check at Google Flights, and my best suggestion, if you book in advance, you can save a lot of money. I can give you the example, like when I was booking in advance fly from, let's say, from Fredericton to Toronto, I could book it for like 269 both ways. But
Mm,
if I would book it like 2 days before
yeah.
my flight, it's gonna cost me
500.
500 or even thousand
Yeah.
dollars both ways. So just check Google Flights, because it's usually Air Canada, WestJet. Uh,
Yeah.
there is not
So
many. Yeah.
unlike most countries or other continents, Canada does not have a cheap. Well, we have Porter Air, but that's not even that cheap. We don't have a cheap airline like in Europe. There's Ryanair or EasyJet, and I know in Japan, I forget what it was called, but I know that in Asia there were some cheaper airlines and cheaper websites like you're talking about, but we don't have that in Canada.
Yep. Just book in
Canada,
advance. Yep.
yeah, it's kind of
My best
expensive
best
to.
advice for you.
Yeah, I mean, and get there are some holiday sales. I got my trip that I just came from. Uh, I got it on Boxing Day, and it was $700 instead of $1,000. So just Canada's a very big country. It does cost a lot of money to get across it. So, but Montreal's not that far. It's about 8 hours from Fredericton, maybe.
Yes, if driving, yes,
Drive
but flight, it
an
would
hour and a
take
half,
you
two
hours,
hours.
around 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. So next question. Um, Hi, my program begins in September 2020. How
Mm-hmm.
soon can I arrive? Um, I think we've addressed this before. I guess this is more of an immigration question again. Um, I would say based on this past year's experience of students arriving in Canada, if you want to arrive early, you can. If you have a good reason, if you have family, if you have friends, but if you arrive significantly early, um, the border agent will likely give you a shorter study permit. We had 2 or 3 examples of that last year. Henny, when did the student arrive last year? There was one student that I think arrived in May or June for a program that started in September. I think
Yep.
it was May at least. It was, a few months in advance, and the border agent was worried that this student wasn't maybe legitimately studying, so wanted to prove that they were actually going to be studying. So only gave the student essentially a 6-month permit, and and that student had to renew it in September or October, essentially because that means that you have to reapply or apply for a study permit extension, proving that the student was actually attending our school. So my recommendation is if you don't want to go through that hassle, don't arrive 3 months in advance. I'd say the maximum is probably a month in advance, a month and a half. And the reason for this also is because you have to remember you're not allowed to start working until you start studying. So if you arrive in July, I think July is probably the earliest I would come for a September start. That could give you, a month, month and a half to settle in. That's fine. But you have to have enough money to live in Canada without working. So, so as long as you're able to do that, that's probably fine. But just know as soon as you arrive until the moment you start studying, you're not allowed to study or you're not allowed to work. So I would recommend at least 1 week before classes start. That's our, I think, recommendation, Henny,
Yep.
to get settled and adjusted, but probably no more than a month or a month and a half. Anything
In
to
a
add, Henny?
Yeah, in the past, I saw maybe one case when student have family and he explained if to the border officer why he came earlier. But other than that, we do not recommend to come earlier. And please keep in mind, if you come earlier, you would need to purchase pre-arrival, early arrival
Health
insurance,
insurance.
health
Yeah.
insurance, because your health insurance will cover you from the day the study begins. So just keep it in mind that yes, you pay for your insurance, but your insurance will cover you during your study. And if you come earlier, you would need to purchase early arrival insurance from GuardMe. And yeah, there is a discount rate for this. It's not that expensive, but it's a good thing to do because in some cases students think they pay for the insurance, they came earlier and they don't have any coverage in case something happens. The bills could be very expensive here.
Yeah, so essentially that's kind of the point is because you're unable to work, you have more insurance to pay. It could be a bit expensive, especially if you don't have anywhere to or like if you have family, they could house you and feed you for a month. That's fine. That could be that could be great. But if not, it could be a bit expensive to come before studying. So the next two um are actually for you, Henny.
Okay.
So as an international student, can I start paying for my discipline online prior to my commencement into the college?
Yes, you can. You can pay for your tuition fee in advance.
Hmm.
It's not mandatory. NBC does not require you to pay in advance, but you definitely can. And if you
Hmm.
go at our international page at nbc.ca, please check tuition and see payments options. So there is a few payments option available for you to pay, and tuition fee in case you pay and you couldn't obtain your study permit, tuition fee is refundable, but confirmation fee and we call it confirmation/reservation fee and application fee is non-refundable, so please keep it in mind. Yep.
And the next one, do you offer any scholarships? If yes, what's the application procedure?
So NBCC does offer scholarship, but it's not entrance scholarship. In order to apply for scholarship, you need to be a full-time student at NBCC, and you can check on our website in regards for the scholarship. There is a few scholarship available. Once again, they're not gonna cover all your expenses, but they will definitely help. And you
Mm-hmm.
can only apply when you join NBCC and you full-time student. So this scholarship and brochure, I'll share my screen again. So if you
Okay.
go here and just nbc.ca admission and scholarship and awards, and you can see what is available, what is the deadline, and some additional scholarships. So you can find all the information under NBCC scholarship bursary awards. Yep. Hope
Awesome.
this answer your question.
Yeah, perfect. Um, so next question is maybe for both of us because we're in two different cities in New Brunswick. Do you have any support for students' family, like English lessons?
It's a
So
good
as
question.
a college, yeah, so it is a good question. It's a very good question. As a college, I think we can answer no at this point. We do not have
Yep.
English lessons for family. Maybe that's something to consider in the future, but at this point, no, we don't have English support for family members. But um, but you were saying earlier, Hanny, what about Fredericton?
So I had a meeting in Multicultural Association and I asked this question. And my best advice for you, for your family members, to go and check with local multicultural association.
Hmm.
They might provide you some services and programs, but once again, multicultural association, it's not part of NBCC.
Yep.
So my best advice would you go and check with multicultural association in Moncton, Fredericton, wherever you go,
Yeah.
and they might provide you English or other, services. They will guide you to the right direction.
Yep. Even the smaller campuses. Um, I know that in Miramichi for sure, and Woodstock, there's Carleton County multicultural. Like there are multicultural associations all across New Brunswick, but each of them are different. Like they're not related to each other. So the services that they offer are different. And I could just add that I used to work at a multicultural association when I lived in British Columbia. Um, and typically, the services that these associations provide are for permanent residents. However, because New Brunswick has been receiving a lot of international students, some of them are trying to open up programs for students and possibly for their families. So definitely check in with the settlement agency. So
And they will definitely
yeah,
refer you because as far as I know, there is numbers of conversation clubs available. There is a lot of volunteers
hmm,
who is willing to help newcomers. So definitely
yeah,
worth to check.
it's definitely a good place to check. Yeah.
Yep.
So this question is, and we might have two different answers for this as well, or different points of view. How important is French in New Brunswick? I would like to learn French. Um, I've grown up in New Brunswick and I am fully bilingual in French. So for me, it's kind of a non-issue because I do speak French. So maybe Henny, I'll ask you, what's your point of view in terms of, because you don't, well, you speak a little French, don't you?
Je peux
Yeah.
parler français? Oui.
Oui, c'est bon. Um, but what's your point of view as a newcomer? Was it
So,
difficult not speaking French? Yeah,
well, it depends. It depends. So New Brunswick is the only bilingual province in Canada, so it means that both services are available in English, in French. So if
that's right.
you would go to Ontario, or any other province, it would be English, except Quebec, it's
Quebec, it's
French
French.
only.
Yeah.
But in New Brunswick, it's both English and French. So if you planning to work for government, there's a lot of job opportunities. Not every job opportunity, but a lot of them would require you to be bilingual. And in regards to the cities, because in New Brunswick, if you would go into Moncton, as far as I
Yeah.
understand, it's more bilingual city
Yeah,
than
it is.
St. John or Fredericton, and we have parts of New Brunswick on north that it's like Edmonton. The people speak a lot of people speak French, so I
Hmm.
would say it never hurts. It's
Yeah.
all will gonna be beneficial. And if you're planning to work maybe in the future for government of Canada, many on federal level, a lot of jobs would
Hmm.
not a lot of, but many jobs would require you to be bilingual, and it's definitely an
An
advantage if you
asset.
invest
Yeah.
an asset if you invest your time in it, and it's a great stuff. I did learn French. I don't use it a
Yeah.
lot, to be honest with you, but yes, I did invest time, and
Yeah. And you can understand it. I know that like, yeah, your understanding is really good and your effort in speaking it. That's one thing that I think almost any country around the world, like when you are trying to speak their language, it's so appreciated. So yes, I would definitely agree with everything Hanny has said. Try to learn some French. It will only open your opportunities. So
Yep.
good.
And especially if you
Um,
might go to Quebec, there is some places in
yeah,
Quebec that speak French, and I go to restaurant, I don't have any problem. I can, order foods and all that stuff. So yeah.
yeah, that's very cool. So oh, thank you for everything. My question is, if I apply for a part-time job after I finish my one-year program, am I able to apply for a work permit for a year? So again, this comes back to something we said earlier. It's not a requirement to have a full-time job before you apply for your postgrad work permit. So not a problem. If you only have a part-time job, that's totally fine. You can apply for your postgrad work permit with or without a job or with a part-time job. That's fine. So you're easy there, or you're good there. So does NBCC partner, is NBCC a partner of Study and Stay? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is. We've had quite a few students who went through the Study and Stay program last year that I think it was a huge success for them. And we've got students enrolled in it this year, and so we're midway through. And the Study and Stay program, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's a government program that selects students from all 7 public colleges and universities, so English and French. Speaking of our bilingualism, um, I was actually involved in Study and Stay when it first started, when I was working at the province. And at that time, we had 27 women, 27 men, 27 francophones, 27 anglophones. Like, so of the total group, it was like a perfect mix of language and gender balance. And we had over 40 countries represented, and it was such a cool program. It's a one-year program that takes international students in their final year, that gives them an extra couple of like workshops and retreats to help them better understand New Brunswick's work culture, Canadian culture, help you integrate even more to help you study and then stay in New Brunswick. So it's a very cool program.
Yep.
So I'd recommend it to anyone. Okay, good morning, Henny and Claire. Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Um, Regarding tax refund, is having an apartment lease included as expenses? So Henny and I were talking about this morning. Neither of us are tax experts. We will say that upfront. The only thing I can say is one of us may or may not do their own taxes, but oh yeah, we both wanted to give our recommendations, eh? Um, I file my own taxes on an online program called UFile, $20, and you could do it all yourself. It's very straightforward. I like it. But I used to do what Henny still does, which is,
So I go to accounting agency and they do my taxes for me.
yeah. Oh,
And
okay.
the way it works, the way it works, you don't have to pay it. They usually provide a free consultation. So they gonna do your taxes and they tell you how much you can get refund and how much would you pay for the services, and then you can make decision whether you would like to proceed with the services or not. So that's how I do it. I go to the accounting agencies. They offer a variety of financial services. They do my taxes and they tell me that's how much you're gonna get. That's what you can include, and that's how much our services cost. And that's how I
Right.
do. So I'm not expert by any means.
No, and neither am I. But what I would say to this question is, because there is a part of your taxes you that you can get a rebate if you had to move locations for school or for a job. And so I did that when I moved from Sackville to Fredericton, and I just kept all my receipts of like the car rental and the U-Haul rental, like some added costs. So when it comes to international students coming to Canada,
Yep.
I don't know. I, I don't know, and I don't think that counts. But of course, what I would recommend is just keep all of your
Receipt.
receipts, keep all of your documentation, and go, as Henny said, if this is your first time doing your taxes in Canada, go to a tax consultant and see. I mentioned my company, so you can you can mention yours if you want.
Well,
Like H&R Block
I did, yeah.
it's a common one, yeah. But there are lots. There are lots to choose from. There are local accountants.
Wherever works for you
Um,
guys. Yep.
whatever works for you. So I would just say keep your receipts, and it might count, it might not. So,
Especially the reason why, because students come the first time to Canada. Some of them come first time to Canada. They might not be aware with tax system. And even when I go to the taxing agency, they refer me to one person who deals with international students, with
okay,
immigrants. So it's a little bit different field from local. So yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's good that they have that on hand. That's good. So the next question is, when will be too late to apply for a program that starts in September? What's your answer to that, Hanny?
It's a good well, it's never too late. It just the only one thing you have to take in account if we have seats available for the program,
Yeah,
and
that's
if
right.
you have enough time to apply for your study permit. So we accept application as soon as program open, and I just want to share my screen again and show you
Hmm.
where you can find this information. So if you wonder if you wondering you want to come and study, you need to go admission and in finance, international seats available. And as
Hmm.
you can see here, here is outlined the program that's still available. So you can apply for these programs, and we don't have
Yeah,
a deadline, but please take in account the time for you to get the study permit, and some of the students they need to get their English language test. So
that's
take
right.
everything in account. But as soon as it's available, you can apply. If it's not available, you won't be able to apply because we close this program in our system.
That's right. Um, yeah, right now you're still pretty good for applying for any of those programs, and you're still in lots of time for a study permit. But the closer we get, the fewer programs will exist, and the tighter it could become with a study permit. So, um, next question is, hello, I've applied for a study permit, September intake. Okay, that's great, but I didn't know that I need a work permit as well. Do I need to pay for a work permit in advance to receive it on the border, or can I pay it directly to the officer on the border? So, really good question.
It
Um,
is.
so I know that um, not everyone. So if you've already applied for your study permit and didn't know that the work permit was a requirement, that's fine. The border agent or the IRCC person processing your papers might actually catch it, because if you submitted your letter of acceptance, which is a requirement, in your personal information in box 24, it does say that it is a requirement. It says, yes, you do require a work permit. So even if you didn't know that, the officer might have caught that. And so that's number one thing I'll say, is that you might get it anyway because they caught it, which would be great. But if not, what I would say is don't panic. And number two is you don't have to pay extra. Actually, the work permit comes with your study permit. So if they caught it on that first application, it will just come with your study permit. If they didn't, what I would recommend you do is bring that additional letter of mandatory work experience letter that we have on our website that we talked about last week, and will include in a follow up. Is that right, Annie? Will we be
Yep.
sending a follow up, or in our
Yep.
link, the YouTube link, maybe?
Yes,
Okay.
we will. I mean, I can share the screen, and I will put the
Yeah, sure.
chapter so you don't have to. I will share my screen and show you where you can
Can you?
find it.
Yeah,
Do you
that's
want
right.
me to give your permission?
If you could, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So
Change
So if you
presentation.
go to visa permits, oh, I was gonna say you can, but
Yep.
All right. Show my screen. Is
Yep.
did you make? Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
No. Oh, you can. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. NBCC. Okay. You can still see it. Okay. So as I mentioned last week, visa permits and immigration. Thanks, Annie. Good luck. Annie always likes to tease me by sending me emails that you can all see, which is very nice. So in visas, permits, and immigration, I do always go down to the resources and guides. This is what I've created since coming to NBCC. And you'll find here the mandatory work experience at NBCC letter. So if I were you, I would, so if you haven't applied for a study permit yet, please do check yes that a work permit is required and include this additional letter because that will help you get that work permit that you need. If you didn't include it in your study permit application, bring it with you at the border and they could possibly give it to you then. If worst case scenario, and again, worst case scenario isn't that bad, if you don't get at the border, then as soon as you arrive in New Brunswick, you can apply online for a study or work permit, and it doesn't cost you anything. So those are three scenarios. Apply if you haven't applied yet for your study permit, do include this and apply for it at that time. If you already applied and you forgot to include this, bring it to the border and you could get it then. Or third is apply as soon as you arrive on campus in the fall or in April.
Great.
Okay, so
Great. And I just want to add to
yeah,
this. You can check in your letter of acceptance on the last
mhm,
page in
yeah, box
section
20.
20, box section 24.
Mhm,
It shows if work is part of your study. If it says yes,
yeah.
usually, as I understand, it's enough proof to get your study permit. But
Ta-da! Like this piece of
yeah,
paper, and I would just say, yeah, where is it? Yeah, 24.
yep,
It says
it says
yes.
yes.
Okay, so there you go. That's what it should that's where it does say it. So maybe the IRCC officer caught that. Okay, next question is regarding insurance. I could notice I'm able to purchase insurance for my dependents if I arrive earlier, but my question is if my them as well as my husband who applied for a work permit. That's your question or your oh,
Well, you would. Sorry, I just go back to the question. Uh, you would need to purchase insurance for your dependents, and you
mhm,
can do it on GuardMe. Um,
mhm.
Let me just I'll share my screen. As you can see here at
Yep.
GuardMe web, uh, can you see my screen?
Yes. Yep.
So all you need to do is just add your dependents here, GuardMe at NBCC, and you click here and add dependents. And you
That's
just
great.
go through the process. And yeah, we will definitely recommend you to do it and make sure that all members of your family cover it. And yep, I hope this answers the
Awesome.
question.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it does. So yes, you do need insurance for your kids and husband. Um, does NBCC provide guidance on job opportunities? And by the way, can I apply for a part-time job within campus? Yeah. So yes and yes.
Yes and yes.
Um, yes, you can apply for jobs on campus, and I'll actually say that jobs on campus, there aren't too many. But if you do have a job on campus, you are actually allowed to work unlimited hours on campus. Um, but if you work off campus, it's 20 hours per week. Um, you can work 20 hours off campus plus any hours on campus. But as I said, there aren't too many at the NBCC campuses. But if you're lucky enough, then just so you know, that's a possibility.
Great.
And
And
does
yep.
NBCC provide guidance on job opportunities?
So my best advice when you arrive, you can contact our Student Success Center. In
Mhm.
each campus, we have Student Success Center where our staff help students with their concern issues or if you have any questions. But we do have this information available on our website. I will
Mhm.
again
Yeah.
share my screen,
Yeah.
and if you go, sorry,
Student services or
sorry, I just need to move something here. If you go, it's under alumni, and you can find employment listing. So if you would like to see what is available and in regards to job, you go nbc.ca
Mhm.
alumni and you can click employment listing, and there is a website and you can click employment opportunity page and see what is available. So
Okay.
I hope this answered the
Great.
question. Yeah.
Yep. Oops. Okay. So, um, thank you for your time. These webinars are very interesting.
Yep.
Not a question, but a very kind statement. Um, and oh, do you have partnerships with daycare?
Unfortunately,
Unfortunately,
we do not. Yeah, but
no.
yeah,
That's something I'd love to see. Because we do offer early childhood education, and of course, those students do help with daycares, but we do not have proper daycares on site or partner with any daycares officially. So, fortunately, not. Um, where can I find a list of books or materials that I need to buy for my course? Hanny?
that would be available in your student account because in many cases you can use the same book from last year, but in some cases courses are changes, might be different. So this information will be available in fall in your Brightspace and student account, so you can check there.
Hmm. So I have good news. That was the last question.
Yep.
And so we got
And
through all of last 6 questions, and now I see that we've got some for this week, eh?
yep. And yeah, if you have any questions that we
Mhm.
did not answer it,
Get to, yeah,
yeah, just type them in the question bar.
yes, which we see that a few have some questions.
Yep.
Um, but the first four
Yeah.
was just asking if the webinar started. Um, please let me know when I can ask. Well, you can ask them now. So we've got 15 minutes left to
Yep.
ask these questions. Are you
And
reading these
and we
as
go
well?
yeah, and we're going to write them down. And if we don't have enough time to
If we don't
answer
get to
this
all of
question,
them,
we'll
yeah.
yep, yeah, we'll
But hopefully,
after.
mhm.
Yep, go ahead.
Hopefully we'll get to all of them now. So, are we reading the same question right now?
Yep, I will.
Okay,
After
go for it.
graduation, diploma program, which is 2 years, how many years will I take to complete my degree? How many years will I take to complete my degree after the graduation? Uh,
So
well,
maybe I wonder if there's any clarification on that because that doesn't exactly make
because
sense. Oh, can I? No, that's a separate question from that student.
so as you know, it will take you, if it's a diploma program, in many cases it will take you 2 years to get your diploma. If it's 1 year
Mhm,
certificate, it will take you 1 year, and that's we don't NBC does not offer any degree. We do offer pathways to different universities.
mhm,
So your 2 year diploma might be credit up to 2 years in university, and if you're
mhm.
thinking about bachelor, it would take around 4 years, and
Yeah,
master around 5-6 years. So, but
we do.
if we're talking about,
Yeah.
yep, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say we do have, yeah, partnerships, 2 degrees. Like accounting has you could do 2 years here and then 2 years at Mount Allison to get a full degree. Mount Allison University, which is where I went to university. So if anyone wants to be an alumni like me from NBCC and Mount Allison, um, but maybe because a lot of students ask about how much time they're allowed to work. Maybe this question was related to that. If your diploma is 2 years, then generally you get a work permit for 2 years. Sometimes you get a 3-year work permit if you're lucky, but I can't guarantee more than what you studied. What you studied is usually what you're able to work afterwards. Okay. Next
Yeah.
question.
Can I start working while in school? Yes, you can.
Is is that the next question? No, I see.
That's what
I
no,
understand that I can pay the tuition fees. Did you see that?
I'm not sure. I see. Can I start working while in school? Maybe.
No,
Okay, you can just read the question.
at 10:22 there was a question. So that first question was at 10:11, and then the next question was 10:22. I understand I can pay the tuition fees in advance, but I'd like to know if it's acceptable to Canadian immigration for a relation to pay the tuition on my behalf. Yes, it is. But you have to have a letter. Okay, so if you are showing a bank account from someone who is it's not your bank account, you can provide that as proof of funds, but you must have a letter from that person saying that this money is a gift to you, not a loan. You must clarify it's not a loan, and this is a gift to you to be used for your tuition and living expenses in Canada. So you are allowed to, but you have to clarify that that relative or friend is providing this to you as a gift, because Canada doesn't want to be responsible for anyone owing money to loan sharks. I don't know. Loan sharks is a term we use in North America. Someone who could hurt you if you don't return the money quickly. So that's why you have to clarify that it's a gift from a relative or a friend. So
Yep.
um, next question.
Can I
Can a
start work?
relation, do you see
Is it?
that now? Can a
Uh,
relation with PR status in Canada pay the
oh yeah.
tuition in advance on my behalf? Would that be acceptable to Canadian immigration? And I'm going to say same answer. So that's what I said. It doesn't matter if they're a foreign national or a Canadian or a permanent resident. You need to document that that it's a gift and it's going to be used for your tuition. Okay, here it is. Can I start
Yeah.
working while in school?
Yes.
Yes, you can work. Yes, you can work while in school, just not before school starts. 20 hours a week off campus and unlimited on campus.
Yep.
Okay. Hi,
Hi.
yeah, go for it. I've read all the questions, so go for it. Now that we're
Hi.
back on the same
Do
track.
1 year programs qualify for study and stay?
Ooh,
It's a good
they
question.
did yeah, they did when I was working at the government. I think that if you're in an only a 1-year program, I think they still might, but I'm not 100% sure. They
Fr- From what I know,
mm,
it does qualify, but as I understand, they prefer to look for students who's been 2 year here on the
yeah,
last in the last year of their study. But
yeah.
it does qualify in general.
Yeah, if you have an awesome application, then
Yep.
yeah, then for sure, there's no harm in trying. So yeah, definitely apply. Um, so what are the conditions for renting a dormitory for students? Hmm.
Good
So
question.
good
Uh,
question.
yep.
We don't have any dormitories that are specifically for students. The reason, just a bit of history, NBCC stands for New Brunswick Community College, and historically, that's because it serves the communities of New Brunswick. So most students, and many Canadian students, live at home and like with their families or whatever where they've grown up, and they come to school. So international students is kind of a new thing. That's why we don't have dormitories. Just to give that background. But Hanny, do you want to talk about housing?
Yep. So we do not have, as Claire said, we do not provide housing, but put housing guides for students who is looking for the places, and they can reach to different, universities. If we're talking about the Fredericton, there is some
Mm,
housing and dormitory options available at the University of New Brunswick or St. Thomas
mhm.
University. And I will share my screen again, and I'll show you where you can find this. So if you go here,
Great.
nbc.ca, like all the information is available on our website. So you go to international applicants, and here is housing. And depends where you go, you can read a recommendation on housing, and we put useful information, so you can check our housing guide, and rely on this as your
Mhm.
starting point for looking for housing. And we did pre-arrival webinar regarding to housing. It was 1 hour webinar when you can
Mhm.
see and find additional information in regard to housing options for NBCC's international students. Yep.
Awesome. 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 Um, so, oh, and the next question is, how easy is it to get accommodation in Moncton? And are there any agencies to contact for this? I would say check out that website that Hanny just showed and read the Moncton Housing Guide. Moncton does have quite a bit of housing available. So, um, yep.
Yep.
Uh, what
What is the
is the
weather?
weather like throughout the year? What is the weather like throughout the year? I'm coming from the tropics.
Well, you better bring the warm clothes and bundle
Yeah,
up. I personally love winter weather
yeah.
because you know I love do like snowboards and ski and different like winter activities.
Hmm.
So, but it could be very challenging, especially if you never experience the winter. However, it's interesting because I met students they never experienced snow in their life, and now we go ski together, and yep,
Yeah.
it will be cold. You can check at the Google weather and see how cold it actually
Yeah,
gets,
that's
and
a
then
good
see
idea.
YouTube video,
Yeah,
and that's what I did.
yeah,
I watched
that's a
YouTube
really
video.
good idea.
Yeah, and it would be cold, but nothing nothing like that
I was I was gonna
nothing that can
give
stop
a story that a student I used to work with at Mount Allison, he was from India, and he grew up only in hot weather, and but he came to Canada and he fell in love with the snow. Like he
you. Yep.
prefers having snowy winters compared to hot all year round. So you never know. You might fall in love with it. If you don't fall in love with it, it's still important to, as Hanny said, be prepared for what you're coming into. Get into that mindset and be ready to embrace it. To know that this is going to be part of your Canadian life, and try to prepare as much as possible. And I think you'll get through it. Yeah, it's a cool experience. It's a fun experience. So the snowy, I always say that I live in a snow globe. You know, I treat it like that. Okay,
Welcome
what's
to
next
North, I
question?
guess.
Yeah, exactly. So I
Uh,
have a 5-year-old child, or yeah, if I get in Moncton by July, will I have uh, time enough to get him in a school, or should I try to get him in a school before I arrive? That's a good question. So if you've got a 5-year-old, they would be entering school, or at least kindergarten, which is where our public school starts here in Canada at 5. Um, yeah, if you're coming to Moncton, which I see you are, there is what's it called? The International Welcome Center, I think it's called. Do you know what I'm talking about, Hanny?
yep. I can after you answer, I can share my experience about this.
Yeah. Do you have
Yep.
kids that I don't know
I
about?
I, I don't, but the nephew of mine,
Yep,
we
go for
enroll
it.
him into school. So the way it works, there is application process. So the starting point for you would be, well, that's what I did. I contact Multicultural Center, and they
Hmm.
point me to right direction, and then you just meet with one of the officer who is responsible for enrollment of kids from different countries, because they need to assess your English language and decide what courses you're gonna take. So it's a little bit of process, and as soon as they done evaluation, and they will ask your preferences, what you want to study, what's your English level, they will enroll you. And for us it took around 2 weeks.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, that timeline, 2 weeks.
Yep.
So if you come in July, yes, you should be fine. And Henny's, talking about your nephew is how old? 12, 13?
Yeah, so he's 14, and we
14.
think
Okay.
that he's qualified for middle school, but they did his assessment and they enroll
Mm.
him in high school. So yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Well, a 5-year-old maybe a bit easier because you know, like actually 5 is perfect. It's such a good time to learn a second language if it's the second language, and so or third language. So, but yeah, 2 weeks. So coming in July should be enough time. That's the answer to that one.
Yep.
If a student is taking a loan for studies from a bank, how the bank should pay the college and which payment method?
Good
Henny, do you
question.
have any insight on that?
Yes, so we have few available payments options. I mean, I will share my screen again, and
So
I
is
guide
there a
you.
bank
Yeah.
transfer one?
So if you go here, NBC tuition and fees,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can click payment options, and you
Mm-hmm.
can also read the payment due dates. And here is a few payments options. I'm not sure which one is applicable for your bank, but in regards to tuition fee, you can pay through Visa, MasterCard, you can pay online, and there is a
Wait, wait, go
we
back
do.
up just a second.
Yep.
Because it does say, can I pay online directly through my bank? But yeah,
Yeah, so
anyway, that might, yeah.
yeah, it might be option. I would definitely recommend you to see the available options and check with your bank what would be
Mm-hmm.
acceptable, because I don't know if they're gonna give you money for study, or because there is few conditions for bank when they give loans. Sometimes they can give you amount of money and you can pay whatever to organization directly, or if they prefer other way. So I would check with the bank, and I would check our payment tuition fee, and so you can come up with a way that works better for you to pay for your tuition fee.
Awesome.
And
Okay,
also
we've got
there are
three
questions and
minutes
answers.
left.
Yep.
Okay, got
Uh,
3 minutes left. Do you think we can get to this? So, it's difficult to find an apartment to rent a week before studies begin in September, especially with a cat. Depends where you go. And so check out those housing guides in as much time in advance as you can. This is very helpful. Awesome. First question. I have a degree in Bachelor of Science, ICT with education. I will get more work experience at NBCC. And also after graduation, can I apply for a master program with my BSc degree plus the diploma from NBCC? That's all up to the school that you're applying for your master's program. Whether they, uh, yeah, I would say a general yes, but it depends which program you're applying to in Canada. Some programs have certain GPAs, some only accept academics, some take academics and life experience. So it all depends on the school you're applying. Thanks for the webinar. It is very helpful. I would like to know where get the co-op letter that you earlier showed. Okay, so we can. Do you want to bring that up while I answer the next question? So
yep.
again,
I
it's an
will. I will share.
NBCC visa permits immigration resources.
Yeah, just
And second question, is it good to gather all documents like police report, medical exam report before applying for the study permit? I would say, okay, we'll just pause. No, Henny, it's actually, yeah, visa permits and immigration down to resources and guides. Yep. And there's the letter. So can everyone see that on the screen? That's where you get the letter. So visa permits immigration, resources guides, and the work experience letter. I
yep.
hope that helps. So, second question, is it good to gather all documents like police report, medical exam report before applying for the study permit? If you're applying for study directs, oh my gosh, SDS, what's it called? Study direct,
Student direct stream.
student direct stream. Told you I'm a little tired. That it is a medical exam and police report are both requirements for upfront. But if not, actually, Henny, do you still have that website open on
Uh,
NBCC? Because I'll quickly, yeah. So in the resources and guides, great. Go to the first one, study permit requirements and steps, SDS countries. So this is great. So if you're coming from China, India, Pakistan, Morocco, wait, okay, the Senegal, wait, where, you're coming from one of the SDS countries, you will see that student direct stream, the upfront medical exam is required and a police certificate is required. If you're coming from any other country or from one of those countries and going through the regular stream, IRCC will inform you when the medical is necessary and the police certificate is only if requested. Okay, I hope that answers your question. And last question, yep, am I obliged to fly in directly to Moncton? I may want to spend a few days with family in another province prior to the start of classes. No, you're not obliged to fly directly into any New Brunswick city. Feel free to stay in Montreal a few days, or but one thing I will definitely say is some students don't realize how big Canada is. So as we were talking about earlier, if you're going to fly into Montreal or Toronto, that's not so far away from us. It's a short flight, but please know that Vancouver is about 6,000 kilometers away and it's very expensive to get here. So if you think that you can just hang out in Vancouver and get a cheap flight to New Brunswick, not so much. So
yep.
anyway, but no, you don't have to fly in directly to New Brunswick. You can explore Canada before you settle in New Brunswick. Sound good?
And yeah, I just want to add to this, especially when you fly to your relatives, please make sure you know what program you apply for,
Yeah,
you know the courses, because sometimes immigration officer may ask you the question, where are you gonna study, what program you enrolled in. So please make sure
that's
you
right. They might be a little suspicious as to, or not, well, yeah, their job, essentially, the border agent's job is to be suspicious of everyone. You just have, don't take it personally. They just have to, they have to quiz you to make sure everyone is telling the truth. So as Hanny's saying, know your program, know where you're going afterwards. And because they might be like, well, why are you in Vancouver if you're going to NBCC? Just say, I know, I've already got my next ticket, in a week. Like, show them that document um, that shows that you are legitimately coming to study at NBCC. It's a good point, Annie. All right.
And I just want to remind our students, if they have
Yep.
more questions,
Hmm.
I believe we address all the questions, and I'm really glad that we address
Yeah.
past questions and these questions. If you have
Yeah.
more questions, please refer to our knowledge base, and you can find it. I will share my screen again at
Sure.
Ask at NBCC,
There we
and you
go.
can find all the questions that you might have. You can find it here, or you might find the questions that you even never think of, but you can find it here as well, and update your knowledge. And if you have something that we did not cover in our webinar, or it's not covered in our frequently asked questions section, please let us know at NBCC International. It's our Facebook group on Facebook. NBC International, message us, and if you have any
Yeah,
questions, please let us know. And I also will post recording of this webinar
that's right.
on NBCC YouTube channel, and I will post it on our Facebook page, and I'll add chapters so you can skip to the topics that you're interested in. And yeah,
Awesome.
that's what I got
That's
from
it.
my side.
Amazing. Well, only 5 minutes over, but I think that was worth it because we got to all of the questions from
Yep,
last week and this week. So sadly, next week, Henny will not be with us. Is that correct?
it is
No?
correct.
Okay. You'll be exploring Canada. That's right.
Yeah.
And but we may be joined by our colleague Lucas, so who I think you met 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
So stay tuned. Hope to see you again next week, and have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful week. Until then, thanks for
Thank
tuning
you.
in.
Bye bye, guys.
Bye. Bye.